Lolo reads episode 82, Trick or Treat in Suburbia. Marianne tugged on her driver's arm. "Oh, Norman, beep, will you?" "Who is it?" "Michael and his parents, Mona's roommate." Norman tapped on the horn. Michael looked towards them as Marianne blew them a kiss from the window of the Falcon. He smiled feebly and pretended to yank out a handful of hair. His parents were charging ahead, oblivious. "Poor baby," said Marianne. "What's the matter?" "Oh, it's complicated. He's queer, isn't he?" "Gay, Norman." Lexi poked her head over the seat. "What's queer?" "Sit down," said Norman. Marianne turned around and fussed with Lexi's Wonder Woman cape. "You look so nice, Lexi." The child bounced on the back seat. "Why don't you have a costume?" "Well, I'm a grown-up, Lexi." The child shook her head vehemently and pointed out the window to the three men dressed as high school majorettes. "Those grown-ups have costumes." Norman chuckled, shaking his head. Marianne sighed. "How old did you say she was?" It was almost dark by the time they reached San Leandro. Norman parked the car in a pseudo-Spanish subdivision and opened the door for Lexi. The little girl bounced down the sidewalk with a mammoth plastic trick-or-treat bag. "Are you sure she'll be all right?" asked Marianne. Norman nodded. "Her folks live over at the next block. I told them I'd, let her get this out of her system." "I hope they appreciate all this." "I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it," he grinned sheepishly. "Rent a kid, you know." "Yeah, it's kind of nice, isn't it?" "Isn't it boring for you?" "Not at all." He looked at her solemnly for a moment, then squeezed her hand. "Norman." "Yeah?" "Have you ever been married?" Silence. I'm sorry, it's just that you were so good with kids that Roxanne and me were going to have kids. That was the plan, anyway." "Oh, she died?" "Oh," Norman shook his head. "She ran off with a ceramic tile salesman from Daly City when I was in Nam." "Oh, I'm sorry." He shrugged. "It was a long time ago. About the time Lexi was born. In fact, I got over it." She looked out the window, embarrassed by this new information and insight into his personality. Was Lexi his only link with a vanished dream? Had he given up all hope of building a home again? "Norman, I don't see how anyone could leave you." "Doesn't matter." "Of course it matters, Norman. You're a kind, gentle, loving man, and no one should... Norman, you've got so much love to give someone." His hands were fidgeting in his lap. He looked down at them. "Someone," he repeated vacantly. He needed a sign from her. He was pleading for a sign. She was reaching up to touch his sad bear's face when a hand on her shoulder made her yelp. Lexi was back. "Oh, Lexi," Marianne laughed, somewhat relieved. "How did you do?" "A crummy apple." "Well, apples are good. I'll eat it if you don't want it." The child looked at her for a moment, then produced the apple and sunk her teeth into it defiantly. Norman shouted in horror, "Lexi, no!" Lexi grinned at him as the juice dribbled down her face. "It's okay," she said. "I already checked for razor blades."